The 1979 Canadian 5-cent coin, commonly known as the nickel, is more than just a utilitarian piece of metal. It is a small but significant artifact that embodies the technological, economic, and political climate of Canada in the late 20th century. Minted by the Royal Canadian Mint, this particular coin is part of the long-standing tradition of 5-cent pieces in Canada, a tradition that stretches back to the 1850s. The 1979 issue falls within the modern nickel era and carries with it the designs, symbolism, and practical features characteristic of coins from the 1970s, a decade that was economically tumultuous, socially transformative, and technically progressive in Canada. To understand the 1979 nickel, one must first appreciate its design and physical features. The coin has a diameter of 21.2 millimeters and a thickness of approximately 1.76 millimeters. Its weight is around 4.54 grams, and it is composed primarily of nickel metal, as was typical for Canadian nickels during that time. The obverse of the coin features the iconic portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, which has appeared on Canadian currency since her ascension to the throne in 1952. The 1979 version uses the second effigy of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Arnold Machin, a British artist whose elegant portrayal of the Queen, facing right and wearing a tiara, became one of the most recognized numismatic images in the Commonwealth. The surrounding legend reads, Elizabeth II de Regina, which is abbreviated Latin for Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen. The reverse side of the coin features one of the most beloved and distinctive designs in Canadian coinage, the beaver. The beaver is depicted sitting on a log, its tail flattened against the ground, with intricate details highlighting its fur and whiskers. Above the beaver is the word Canada, and below it are the numerals 1979, denoting the year of minting. Below the beaver image is the face value, 5 cents. This beaver design was created by G. E. Kruger Gray in 1937 and has endured for decades due to its symbolic importance. The beaver is not only an emblem of Canada's vast wilderness, but also a symbol of hard work and industriousness, qualities deeply valued in Canadian society. The background also includes stylized water ripples, which add depth and realism to the scene. From a numismatic perspective, the 1979 5-cent coin is not a rare issue, but it is of considerable interest to collectors due to its place in the broader timeline of Canadian coinage. In 1979, over 121 million nickels were struck for general circulation, making them relatively common. However, coins from this era are increasingly being collected in mint state (MS) condition, those that have never circulated and retain their original luster. As such, the value of a 1979 nickel ranges from mere face value in circulated condition to a few dollars in high-grade uncirculated condition. The coin was also issued in collector sets, including proof-like sets and specimen sets, produced by the Royal Canadian Mint for numismatists who seek pristine examples. The metal composition of the 1979 nickel is worth noting. Unlike American nickels, which were made of a copper-nickel blend, Canadian nickels during this period were composed almost entirely of pure nickel, approximately 99.9%. Nickel is a strong corrosion-resistant metal that was mined in abundance in Canadian provinces such as Ontario and Manitoba. In fact, Canada was one of the world's leading producers of nickel throughout the 20th century, and the use of nickel in its coinage was both a patriotic and practical choice. The use of this native metal also demonstrates Canada's industrial capabilities and its role in the global mining sector during the Cold War era. The economic backdrop of 1979 adds a layer of depth to understanding this coin. The late 1970s were marked by inflationary pressures, fluctuating oil prices, and shifts in global trade. Canada, like many Western nations, was dealing with the consequences of the 1973 and 1979 oil crises. These economic events affected everything from manufacturing costs to consumer purchasing power. Coins, being mass-produced metal commodities, were not exempt from these economic challenges. In fact, rising metal prices often led central banks and mints to reevaluate the cost-effectiveness of certain denominations. This was one of the factors that would eventually lead to changes in coin compositions and the removal of certain coins in the future. Although the 1979 nickel still used full nickel, just 2 decades later in the 2000s, the Royal Canadian Mint would begin using plated steel cores to reduce costs. The 1979 nickel also reflects cultural continuity and national identity. At a time when Canada was continuing to define itself as a bilingual, multicultural country, distinct from both Britain and the United States, its coinage served as a subtle but constant reminder of its dual heritage. The continued use of Queen Elizabeth II's portrait reflects Canada's status as a constitutional monarchy, while the beaver, as a native animal, reflects the nation's natural heritage and independence. Furthermore, the Royal Canadian Mint, which had been producing coins since its establishment in 1908, had by 1979 become a symbol of national craftsmanship and technological advancement. Speaking of technology, the minting process itself had become significantly modernized by the late 1970s. The Royal Canadian Mint had moved into its new high-tech facility in Winnipeg, Manitoba by 1976, and was using advanced machinery and computerized systems for coin production. These technological upgrades allowed for more precise striking, better quality control, and increased production rates. The 1979 nickel benefited from these improvements, as seen in the sharpness of its features and the consistency of its composition, across millions of examples. In terms of monetary policy, the 5-cent coin held more purchasing power in 1979 than it does today. While modest by contemporary standards, a nickel in 1979 could still buy small goods such as candy, postage supplements, or form part of a small transaction. This purchasing power gave it functional relevance in everyday commerce, unlike in later decades when inflation would reduce its utility. It's also important to remember that the nickel served as a crucial part of coinage systems, bridging the gap between pennies and dimes and facilitating accurate change in cash transactions. The 39 Canadian 5-cent coin also existed in a global context. Coinage from the Commonwealth nations, including Canada, shared certain similarities in design philosophy and symbolism. The presence of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse connected this coin to millions of others across dozens of countries. Simultaneously, the distinctly Canadian reverse design helped distinguish the coin as uniquely Canadian. This dual identity, the imperial and the national, has long been a hallmark of Canadian coin design, and the 1979 nickel is an excellent example of this balance. From an educational standpoint, the 1979 nickel offers insight into metallurgy, minting technology, Canadian history, and economics, making it a valuable resource for students, collectors, and historians alike. It bridges generations, evoking memories for older Canadians who grew up using such coins, and serving as a tangible lesson in history for younger ones. For coin collectors, it represents a period piece, a snapshot of a specific year with all its attendant characteristics, from metal composition to political context. Today, though millions of these coins remain in existence, fewer are found in pristine condition, as wear from circulation has dulled their features. Collectors seeking the 1979 nickel often look for versions in mint state 65, MS 65, or higher, indicating that the coin shows no signs of wear, has full mint luster, and displays sharp, well-struck details. Coins meeting these criteria, especially those still in their original mint packaging, are highly sought after. In conclusion, the 1979 Canadian 5-cent coin is more than a monetary unit. It is a slice of history, a product of its time, and a symbol of Canadian identity. Its continued presence in collections and its enduring popularity speak to its craftsmanship, symbolism, and historical value. Whether seen through the lens of design, economics, culture, or metallurgy, this modest coin encapsulates a wealth of stories, stories that continue to resonate with collectors and history enthusiasts to this day. Like and subscribe this video.